In this video lesson, we will learn about the domains of rational functions. But first, we're going to want to learn what a rational function is. So to explain best, I'm going to start with just regular numbers instead of functions. So we have numbers like 1, 2, 3, 5, 20. These are the whole numbers. They're also called integers or natural, but the idea is that they're just whole. And then there are also numbers like 1/2, -3/2, 17 35ths, 20/31. And these are definitely not whole. These are fractions. There's also another name for these same numbers, and that is rational number. So what does the word rational mean when we're talking about functions? Well, it's quite simple actually. If rational numbers is just a whole number over a whole number, then rational functions are just you have one function over another function. Linear over linear usually. So for example, you could have y equals 1 over x minus 1, or y equals 2x plus 2 over 3x minus 1, or y equals 2x over 2x plus 1, y equals x minus 1 over x plus 1. These are all called rational functions. They all have the same thing in common. They have a top divided by a bottom. So now let's talk about what we mean by domain. Basically, the domain is where a function works. So for example, let's just take y equals 1 over x. This is the simplest rational function there is. We can't have x equals 0 because if we plug in x equals 0, we get 1 divided by 0. Which is undefined. You're not allowed to divide by 0. So that means that x equals 0 does not belong to the domain. That is, the domain is everything else. So as I said, the domain is where a function works. Obviously, x equals 0 does not work. So that does not belong to the domain. Any other number, that's fine, but 0, no. So we can have any number from -infinity to 0 without including 0, or from 0 to infinity without including the 0. And instead of writing or in interval notation, we write this capital U, which means union. So that would be the domain of this function, y equals 1 over x. All right, so now let's do an example. What is the domain of the function y equals x plus 1 over 3x plus 6? Well, okay, there's a top and a bottom. The top part doesn't matter for domain, but the bottom part is what matters. We don't want the bottom part to equal to 0. So we write 3x plus 6 does not equal to 0. Alright, so what does that mean? We can solve this the same way as we would a linear equation. So we subtract 6 on both sides and then divide by 3, and we get x can equal to anything except -2. And that will be the domain. So now we just have to write it in the correct notation. So I'm rewriting x is not equal to -2. And we can write this in interval notation as -infinity to -2 without including the -2, or -2 to infinity, again without including the -2. That's why we're using only parentheses. And again, we use the capital U instead of the or. So this is going to be our final answer. Well, I hope you found this video lecture helpful. Thank you for watching.